Okay, I would like to call the meeting to order. We do not have a quorum at this time. So we will have a recess for 10 minutes. And hopefully we will have enough members here for a quorum. So we'll return back at 6:10. We're back. We have a quorum now, and
Maybe, come on. Click. And you wait for it, wait for it. Okay,
all right, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty tonight. I would like to invite everyone to say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item on the agenda is the comments by the chairperson.
No. Oh, yes, sorry.
I have four things under here. First, I would like to welcome our new member, Lynn Johnson, to the committee. And I have sent all the members the applications so that they know the resumes, et cetera. But Lynn, would you just give us a little background on your and why you want to be on the committee?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn Johnson. I am a resident of the West Contra Costa Unified School District. I have raised 3 children also in the West Contra Costa Unified School District. I used to have 2 children that are still a part of the district. I am by profession. I work in the emergency room as a nurse, but I also have experience with business planning leadership and creating financial plans for the city of San Francisco. And so I'm excited to be here. I definitely wanted to be a part of this committee. I am a very active parent. I'm a part of the school site council for Hercules High School. I'm also a part of the African American Parent Council for Hercules High School. And because I am so involved, I wanted to also become a part of the decision-making for the school district and understanding how funds are allocated, where they are, where they are in the projects and the programs, how they're allocated to each of the schools. And so I'm happy to be representing the parents and guardians of West Contra Costa Unified School District and look forward to learning more about all that you all do.
Okay. Well, thank you. And let us introduce ourselves to you.
Absolutely.
Ja, will you start?
Hi.
And I have 2 children, both in West Contra Unified School District, a Contra Costa District. And I am a homemaker, and I also have 2 pets.
Wonderful.
I'm Don Dawson.
Hi, Don.
I'm Brendan Hamer-Doughton. I have 2 kids, 7 years old, so kindergarten, 2nd grade. Originally from Oakland, moved to Richmond about 4 years ago, and been on the CBOC for about a year now. So good to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
And starting in February, he's going to be the chairperson.
Yes, I remember. Congratulations.
I'm Lorraine Humes. I'm the chairperson for the committee, been for a few months now. And I don't have any children. I have lived in San Pablo for 30 odd years, but I realized the value of our next generation to our citizens. So I wanted to do it, and I don't like to play bingo. I'm retired. So I wanted something a little more challenging. So I joined the committee.
Wonderful.
I'm Tammy Dunning. I am one of your parliamentarians. We're here to help with the execution of your meetings. Um,
My name is Lorenzo Cuesta. I have more than 20 years as parliamentarian. Tammy and I have a business of serving lots of clients. She backs me up with my clients. I back her up with her clients. And that's why sometimes you will see the both of us.
Wonderful, nice meeting
Good evening. This is the district staff here. So I'm Louis Green. I'm Associate Superintendent for Operations for the district, oversee the bond program and other facilities. and safety.
Good evening and welcome. It's wonderful to meet you in person. My name is Melissa Payne. I'm the Executive Director of Contracts Administration and also a very proud mom of West Country Justice students.
Hello, I'm Ellen Mejia Hooper. I'm the Director of Facilities Planning and Construction. So I help manage all of the architectural and contracts or construction contracts.
Wonderful, nice meeting you all. Thanks for the details tonight.
There's one person that usually comes that's missing. We have a board of education liaison.
Well, and
Is it
actually we
their
have two of them and they're on virtually.
Oh, okay, good.
So
Is that trustee Reckler and trustee Smithfold?
Chair.
Chair.
Chair, yeah, well now, yeah, that's
Yes.
another announcement for me.
President.
Or sorry.
Yeah. And they're usually on, trustee, or chairperson, president.
I started with the wrong title.
Yes.
Smith Folds has been faithfully following our committee on, Zoom every month, which is really nice to have two supervisors. They know what we're doing and are up on our problems and trials and our opinions, which is good. The next thing I'd like to talk about is, I noticed in the agenda for the Board of Education meeting on January 10th, that's this Wednesday, that they have special services that the board has to approve. And one of the special services deals with a company called Colby. It's a technology company that deals with financial planning, et cetera. And Colby, they have a contract for $105,000. The importance of this is that we have two financial programs for the district. One is Munis, and a lot of the, like our checks are written under different object codes or whatever. That's what the district uses for that. But Colby is the one where they do programs for our individual financial packets. And we have, unfortunately, we have been missing financial packets since February of 22. So that means it's going to get back in order. And Lewis has assured me that that's what they're doing. And you notice in this agenda, we have two of them back and they're up to date. They deal with, and you'll tell us about that when we get to it. Lewis, could you just give us a real brief compare and contrast the two financial programs?
Yeah, and actually Melissa's gonna do that this evening.
So just piggybacking on what has been shared. So Munis is the district's financial system. And so it runs on a fiscal year and it's really focused on fiscal year, and it's set up because we're a school district for annualized school accounting. The bond program, some of the requirements of the bond program is that we're providing financial reports based on a project. And a project can span many, many years. And so the district's financial system, Munis, is where all of our transactions occur, right? We're following those business procedures and protocols set forth by the district. But we also want to produce financial reports and project reports. And so we use Colby as kind of the bridge. So they have two sides of the house. They have Colby Docs, which is like a document management system. So that's where the documents associated with a project are tracked and managed, requests for information, proposed change orders, submittals. And then there's the accountability side of the house, which is all of the financial reports. And so one of the things that accountability is supporting us with now is really transitioning, how we're doing some of our financial reporting. And so we can really, have more efficient, and timely reports to the committee. And so that will be going before the board. Typically for contracts that provide services on an as-needed basis, we typically take those to the board every 6 months instead of taking them for the entire year, because you know so much more about your projects every 6 months than you do. My crystal ball isn't as good, right? A year out, it's a little bit better in the 6-month range. And so a lot of times you'll see those contracts will go in June, July, and then December, January.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. The fourth, or the next item that I'm talking about is we had elections in January, and people start in February. Well, the school board also elects their officers on a yearly basis. And this year is trustee Smith Fold has become the chairperson. And trustee Gonzalez Hoy has become the clerk. They just switched positions. Last time it was just opposite. So I sent to all the members contact information for the board members. I had sent you a whole list. Just switch that in your notes. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Our next one is to call roll. Brendan, will you please call roll for us?
All right, Lorraine,
Present.
Lynn,
Present.
Brendan, present. Gia,
Yes.
Don,
Here.
Ariel,
Ariel is absent. She couldn't make it tonight, and she let me know ahead of time. Okay, thank you. Now it's time for public comment, and members of the public can speak on things that are not on the agenda right now, and they will have 3 minutes to do it, and if there were several people, we might extend the total period of 10 minutes. However, they can also talk during the meeting as we get to agenda items, but the public comment is just for non-agendized items.
We do have one hand.
Oh, good.
Yes, trustee Reckler, I am trying to get my computer to come over to you. Have you asked on mute? Yeah, great. So trustee Reckler?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, but we are hearing you on my computer, so if you just give me 1 second, let me make sure the owl can use the speaker. All right, try again, please.
Can you hear me?
You're all set.
Great. So hello to everybody. I just wanted to wish you a happy new year and apologize for not being there in person. Monday is a very difficult day for me. And sometimes if I'm able to get to the computer by 6 o'clock, I'm feeling very good about that. And if I'm not able to be in attendance, I am screening your meetings after. So I just wanted you to know that. I wanted to take a moment to welcome Ms. Johnson to the committee. Hello. And then I wanted to take a moment to thank Ms. Humes for her leadership over the last year. I really enjoyed working with you and am really impressed by your leadership. I loved your even and steady hand, your commitment to training members, and your commitment to oversight. I really appreciate that. And I wanted to also welcome Brendan for stepping up, and I'm really looking forward to what you do over the next year, expanding the CBOC scope and engaging members. And so with that, that's it. Happy New Year, and thank you and welcome to all.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Are there any oh, I'm sorry. Are there any objections to the agenda? No? One, two, three. With no objections, then the agenda will stand. Now we're into the second section, the district reports. And the district reports are given by Lewis's team, Lewis, Melissa, and Ellen. So, Ellen, will you lead off with number one, the bond project reports?
I will.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us again. Welcome to January. Whole new year of projects to start. So, Kennedy, Richmond, and Stage, we are working on getting the architects on board for the next stage of design. Just as a quick recap for everybody, this chart you'll see every month as part of our monthly reports, and we go ahead and list out every project that we have going on the books that are active. We do additional slides for the ones that are actively under construction, so that gives you a feel of what we've completed over the year. So Kennedy, Richmond, and Stage, we finished a scoping and prioritization process back in November, and we plan bringing forward architectural proposals in the coming board meetings for the following architectural services. And so all three of those are some level of modernization. For Kennedy High School, we also have what we call the critical needs project, and that project is defined in the 2016 master plan as the demo of 100 and 200 building, which is that main building along Cutting Boulevard. We are in progress. We have a set of drawings in DSA. DSA is the Division of State Architect. They are our permit agency, so they're where we go to be able to get our drawings approved before we're allowed to build. The MDF is where all of the main low voltage pieces come in, so like your data, security systems, fire alarm systems, phones, those pieces all head into the campus, into your MDF. And so that's currently located in the 100 and 200 building, and it's frowned upon to have a high school that doesn't have working phones or internet. So we're moving that before we knock the building down. So that's the project that we currently have drawings into DSA to move that and relocate it to one of the old boiler rooms that have been abandoned in the library building, if you're familiar with where that is. So it's a room that's currently underutilized, and so we'll be taking that over. The nice part about that space is it can stay there long term. So this isn't a temporary move, it'll be most likely a permanent move for when we do the modernization of that campus. We're also beginning the drawings for the demolition package itself. So those are in what we call design development. At Shannon Elementary School, our critical needs project there. And anytime you see that critical needs label, it's really dictated by that 2016 master plan. So it identified small projects at all of the schools that we weren't able to get to a full rebuild for. But the particular one at Shannon is a new multi-purpose room. So that's a brand new building. The existing multi-purpose room at Shannon is really an old portable. So we're replacing it with a stick-built building that includes a real full-size kitchen, which they've lacked at that campus. So we rejected those bids. We bid it out in December. We are going to rebid it here shortly. In construction, our biggest project currently in construction is the lake rebuild. So that's a full campus rebuild, which we have additional pictures of in a moment. We'll go through those. Hercules Middle and High School. Hopefully you're familiar with that project. Good. So we've got 8 science labs going into a single building that will be shared between the middle school and the high school. We're in construction there, and we have additional photos to show where that is in this slide presentation. At Collins and Cameron, we are doing a project that mostly focused on a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning replacement project. However, when you do a new HVAC system, we need additional electrical, and we also are required to do accessibility upgrades with every project we perform. So it also included electrical upgrades as well as those accessibility upgrades. Right now, we are waiting. We have the equipment. However, we need PG&E to help assist in finalizing that project. So that's where we are on both of those projects. But the equipment has already been installed. At Riverside, we did a new playground project. When you see this word closeout, it really means we're finishing up the paperwork that has to do with the project, not necessarily the project itself. So we're still closing the books on Riverside. E-rate is a joint funded project that includes federal funding, which is and it's all focused on technology. That also is in closeout. And then the Kidney Fields project, which was redoing the stadium bleachers as well as replacing the turf. That is also in closeout. And then we have Pinole Valley High School, where we did a fields renovation or restoration and bleacher project. However, during that construction, we had a slip in the hillside that was behind the tennis courts. And we're currently in review with the California Geologic Society's it's one of the review agencies that look specifically at our soil and how we structurally support our soil. We're currently in their review process.
Very good. Any questions? Sorry, Don?
The people living on the other side of that slip hillside, are they still suing the district?
There's an active litigation ongoing, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to remind the committee that the process that you see on this chart, before they even build a school, it could take 2 to 5 years just to get up to that spot with all the paperwork that has to be in, the architect and the paperwork and all the different areas that have to okay it. So I just wanted to let you know that. You have a question?
I did have a question regarding Shannon Elementary, where we noted that where we noted the reject and rebid. Is there a reason why the bid was rejected previously?
The original bid came in over the project budget.
Okay.
And so on that project, we bid it out earlier than we could start construction because of not wanting to start the soil to start the foundations and digging in the soil while it was wet. And so we were looking to wait until after the rainy season to start the hard construction. So we had a little bit of buffer anyways. And so since it came in, we had a great amount of contractors show up to the pre-bid walk. So when we have a project out to bid, we invite contractors to come see the site or the place that we're doing the construction. And most of the time that's a mandatory meeting. So if you want to go after the project, you have to attend that project or that walk. And we had a great number of contractors show up to that, but not many of them bid the project. And formally submitted the paperwork to say that we'd like to go after the project. And this is the cost that we would build this project for. And so we were hoping, since we had this extra time, that we would be able to get a more competitive bid after the holidays. Sometimes December's a hard time to bring out a project because people are distracted. And so we're hoping that now that the holidays are complete, that we will be able to reach out to those contractors again who attend the first mandatory walk and say, hey, we're doing this again. Please show up and please submit the paperwork. So.
And it's a good chance to say, like, in that list I gave you of everybody in the organization, Superintendent Hurst's secretary, Rosa, Cornet. She sent out the agendas for the Board of Education meetings. So if you email her, she'll put you on her agenda list. And that's where you would find out this information on the bidding and anything. So it's always good to look at that. Then you look and hit the item and it gives you a description, a summary and everything, so you can learn a lot that way.
All right, so moving on, Lake, we always have a cover slide and then we have this little description below that kind of gives you an idea of what that project is. So that's another good place to look to get up to date. At Lake, we have 3 buildings that are currently under construction as part of this first phase. The administration building, you can just see the edge of it here. This is the B building, this is the C building. The B and C building are both classroom buildings for 1st through 6th grade. Last month, every building kind of goes in order so that the subs go from one building to the next. And that's an efficient way to approach construction. So they all start in the A building, then they go to the B building, then they go to the C building. Last month, we were at the B building and we just started the siding. Now you can see that we're almost complete with the siding on the edge. Our site work slowed down due to the amount of rain. So the painters moved inside. The A building did get their exterior paint done, but the B and C is still the raw stucco. In the administration building, the A building, this is the front office space, but behind the counter. So you can see just this little bit of countertop casework that is placed here. That's the front counter from the backside. And so over here's the main lobby of the administration building. So you can see we have additional pieces of casework laid out. That's the big next effort within the A building. This is the front drop-off zone. That's off of 12th Street. We did make subgrade, although it was a tough effort to be able to get the compaction we needed. But we did make it for this piece. We also had our maintenance group come out, which was really fun. So we got to tour them around. This is our mechanical team up on the roof, looking at the units that are up there. This is on top of the B building. Luckily, the roofers were around, so the ladders were available. That's why you don't have the same shot that we were taking for a while. They've now closed up the roof hatch, but they've yet to install the ladder. So I can't get up to the roof the same way I could before, but the roofer was still here. So we got them up to the B building to look at the units up there, but they went around and looked at the, the mechanical and electrical rooms and were able to see the interior spaces before we put all of the ceiling tiles up, so that they could see the ductwork and the wiring and things before the ceiling tiles went up, which was great. Here they are installing the low voltage cabling now. So you can, I don't know if you remember a previous one, but the cords all look like a big nest. Now they're neatly organized and they're zip tied in and getting plugged into the racks and distributed out to all of the buildings. So that's another big effort that's currently going on. So that's Lake. And then we
I
have,
a question.
yep.
Thank you, Ellen. So, the tour for the maintenance team, I think that's awesome. Who did the tour, and is that part of the kind of commissioning process, or is there any required training for maintenance personnel prior to opening the building?
There is. So this is our informal tours. So throughout when we're still in design, we normally do a page turn with our maintenance folks in design development as well as in construction documents. But then once we get to construction, we do these informal tours depending on, the plumbers went through a while ago because they like to see things before we put the drywall up. So they like to see the interior of the walls. Our electrical, especially our AV folks, they can't come out before this point because we had no wires in. And so we stagger it depending on which trades they are. But these are more informal tours, so they walk around either with myself or our project manager to just point out the systems that are in place, so that they can see things while things are still uncovered. And then when we get to the end of construction, we have training set up for all the major systems. And those are a more formalized things that actually happen with the subs themselves. So the construction sub-tier contractors will give the trainings for the different pieces.
So for the informal tours, it's just district staff or.
We call over the, the superintendent or the project engineer on site if they have particular questions, but yes, it's normally just district staff that takes them around, as well as our maintenance director, who talks to the guys about different components that he wants them to notice.
I'm so sorry. When doing the projects or getting the bids for doing like the Lake Elementary project, do you start off with a time frame, an approximate time that it would take to get that construction completed?
Yes. So part of the bid process does have a schedule associated with it, a milestone schedule.
One of the things connecting it to what Ms. Humes had shared earlier about when you look in the board packet, when we have gone to bid and we're making a recommendation to award a construction contract, it'll be a standalone précis, so it'll be a standalone item. In that item, we identify a scope of work. We identify when we held the bid process, the number of bidders and their actual bids. And then we identify the anticipated completion time, which comes from the bid documents that we put out to bid. Lastly, it provides the amount of the contract, and then it provides the account code where those funds are available for that contract. And so, excellent question, critical part of any bid, right?
Yes.
Scope and time really drives what it's gonna cost.
Yes.
And that information is available in the board packet when we bring recommendations forward.
All right, next up, Hercules High School, Middle School Science Building. We were able to pour the slab for the middle school side. So there's a spine wall that goes down the middle of that's this wall right here is the spine wall. It separates the middle school from the high school sides, which also gave us a nice break for the slab. So we were able to pour the middle school side last month. If you recall, we had all of the underground components in, and so now they're concreted over. And we also had the rebar and framing in place for the seat walls of the amphitheater. Now the amphitheater has been poured, as well as the frames have been stripped, or forms have been stripped, so you're able to see the concrete there. Those will get backfilled in, and eventually they'll end up with artificial turf in these gaps between. But for the moment, here's where we are. We were happy that we were able to hit a window there. We do anticipate, or they are starting to frame on top of this slab. And so I don't know exactly when they're gonna tilt those vertical, but the walls are being framed, so that's always a big
I
highlight.
believe you're gonna pour the other slab this week.
That was the
On high-
plan, yeah.
That's the side.
And so we also have these like one-page snapshots of each of the projects that give you an idea of the project scope, the project schedule, who's the team that is working on the project, and where we are in the contract. So this gives you a summary. This is Lake is a design build, so it's a different contract approach from our other projects. So you're gonna notice a bit of a difference here. We have contingencies that are part of the design build process. And so you'll see a summary of those here, as well as project updates, which basically goes through some of the pictures that I show also the activity of last month and then where we're heading next month. For Hercules, especially the contract summary looks a little bit different because it is a design bid build. And so we have a different structure for that. But otherwise, the other components are similar. Those are kind of like the one-page snapshots. We also do monthly construction newsletters. And so we have one in here for Lake. One of the fun things that also happened last month is we had the city schools tour that was able to bring some of our city dignitaries around to look at Lake. They just went in the administration building, but it was good to have them on site. And our wonderful team at Lake was there to welcome them as they arrived. But you can see additional pictures here as well as summaries of what's happening at each one of the buildings. And same for Hercules. I like this picture a lot. It was a foggy day when we did the pour, so can see that happening there, the pump.
Any further questions for Ellen? Don?
No.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll move on into, Melissa's going to give us the financial report.
So I wanted to, if it's okay, start with the third item, which is kind of the master plan implementation, which really introduces the reports, and then we'll come back to them. So is that?
That's your
showing?
FMP
Not yet.
training.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the FMP is a very important part of our
Yours being
oversight. You've got the measure, the
He
product
sees it.
measure.
So then I've got to figure out
Which
how
tells
to,
you
Oh,
what
there.
they can do.
it's that long to come
Then
through.
you have the master report that tells you the budget, and, how they are, what they're going to do with each section. So we've got to match the two. When we get a bill, we've got to make sure that whatever's in that project list is, not necessarily that's being done, because they may not get to everything. But if it's not in the project list, it can't be done. Okay. So it's a very important, program.
Thank you. So this is a handout that's available here tonight. And so we hope to kind of connect between the great presentation that you just heard that really provided scope and these beautiful pictures and kind of descriptions of the project, and connect that to the financial reports, a different lens of the same content. And so one of the things that was mentioned was the 2016 facilities master plan. And so back in 2016, there was a remaining authority available in Measure D 2010 and Measure E 2012. And the board said, we need to take this remaining authority and we need to come up with a master plan, right? The plan of how those dollars would be allocated across the sites. And so the board did approve a plan back in June of 2016. And so kind of affectionately called out the 2016 facilities master plan. Just recently, on November 8th of last year, the board also approved an implementation plan for Measure R. And so Measure R is from 2020. And so measured, the 2016 facilities master plan was looking at about 181 million, Measure R is 575. And so what is the plan? And so jumping to the next slide, this is a snapshot of the 2016 facilities master plan implementation. So you can see in the left-hand column, it identifies the school. Then there's the project type. So one of the things that Ellen mentioned, for example, with the Hercules science building, right? We know that as the science building project, right? Because for our community, right? We're really excited to open these labs. But from the master plan approval standpoint, all of the projects that weren't a major modernization or rebuild were called the critical need. And that's because there was this comprehensive community process to really identify what is the great need at that site and how do we take the available dollars to try to meet those needs across so many different district priorities, right? There's always more need than there are available funds. So when you look down the project type column, you'll notice that most of them say critical needs with just 2 identifying them as replacement. And so the 2 replacements from 2016 were Michelle Obama Elementary, that project's completed, and then Lake Elementary, which is happening now. The remaining projects were called critical needs projects. The next column, FMP, that's our abbreviation that we're using for facilities master plan. It identifies the original budget back in 2016. Okay, and so the next column says current budget. And so that column identifies what is the current board approved budget for that project. And so one of the requirements of our implementation of our bond program is that the board approves the project budget. And any increase or decrease to that project budget must be approved by the board. And so, I mean, that is like etched in stone for us. And so the current budgets are reflected there. The next column, which I think provides a lot of value, is it has the status. And we'll talk about a couple of these different status types and what they mean. So for example, tonight, you'll see the columns that are in gray are completed. That means the project's complete, the financial reconciliation's complete. There's no further action at that site in the bond program at this time. Those are in gray. The next color we see is blue, and that says construction. So you could expect to find all of the blue lines on that sheet that Ellen shared at the beginning of her presentation, kind of her project snap sheet where she breaks it down into those different categories, right? What's in design, what's in procurement, what's in construction. Any of the projects in blue, those are going to be on her status sheet, and she's going to be reporting on those monthly. And so you see, for example, Cameron and Collins, Hercules, and Lake. The next color you see is this salmon orange color, and that says closeout. And the reason why it says closeout is while the work is completed at that site, the financial reconciliation hasn't been completed yet. So you'll notice when you look at those lines, let's take, for example, the Fairmont line. You can see that the budget of $3 million, the current board budget is still $3 million, right? But if we look at the line right above that, which is Betty Reed Soskin, you see they had a budget of 3.1, and notice how their current budget is a really specific number. See how it's $5,169,597. So that is the exact amount. We completely reconciled and closed that, and all of the project savings on that project through board action were returned to the fund balance. So that project's completed. So for a project that's in closeout, it still needs to go back to the board stating, here's the final amount that we spent, and then recommending that the board decrease that project budget to be final and closed. And that's why you'll see a number of projects that are in that kind of orange salmon color. I see my color choices weren't great. I want you to know Ellen is amazing at colors. I'm not maybe the best person to pick
Orange
colors.
salmon
for
color
this.
is like the color.
I'm gonna have to get some consulting later. The next category you see on here is, for example, the Highland and Kennedy lines that are more of a yellow. Butter, now I'm just decimating colors. So design and planning columns, Highland and Kennedy. And so those are the projects, as Ms. Hume had shared, the planning and design process can take a number of years before you see construction take place. And so that gives you an idea, Stige being another one of the projects. So when you really look at this 2016 facilities master plan, there are a couple of things that set it apart. The funding for these projects are from the Measure D 2010 and E 2012. We have sold all of the bonds for both of those measures, so there are no future bond sales for either measure. And all of these projects are completely encumbered. One of the actions that took place at the November 8th board meeting back in 2023, oh, it sounds so long ago, was that the Siege Critical Needs Project of $2.9 million, that project budget was increased. So there was an approved increase of $40.1 million, bringing that project budget to 43 million. So moving it kind of from a critical needs to a partial mod. But the reason why you see it reflected here is that original Siege project, the funding belongs to the 2016 Facilities Master Plan. So the next slide is going to give you a snapshot of Measure R. So the top box, so at that November 8th meeting, the board approved an implementation for Measure R. Same things we're looking for. What is the site? What is the project? What is the budget? And what is the status? So for Measure R, we have Kennedy and Richmond high schools that are looking at partial replacement and modernization. And they have a $280.1 million budget. Both of those projects are in kind of pre-design and planning. And then the Siege project is listed there with a little asterisk because it was approved at that meeting, but it doesn't have Measure R funds assigned to it, which is why we've left it in the 2016 Facilities Master Plan. And then there's the Kennedy High School $6.6 million field renovation, which is in that closeout status. The work is complete. We need to go back to the board and do the final reconciliation. Then at the bottom, just so you could kind of see all of the projects that are in front of us right now, I took the projects from the last slide, right? Our 2016 Facilities Master Plan projects that haven't been completed, and I put them here. So when you look at this slide, this really represents all of the projects in our bond program as authorized and approved by the board at this time. Okay. So why is that important and how does that connect to kind of the collection of financial reports that you see? So one of the financial reports that we'll look at tonight is called the Bond Program Spending to Date by Site. And so the goal of this report was to take our entire bond program, which goes back to 1998, and put it on a page. So we cheated, it's front and back, but it's there. One of the things that can be very valuable about this report is if somebody wants to look at a site, the information is there. But this is information that spans almost 25 years. And so it's all together. And so one of the examples I wanted to use, and the reason why I put two reports here is you see, for example, the top report shows the summary for Collins. And it shows a board approved budget, if you follow here, of 8.9 million. But that's over the entire bond program. And the project that we're looking at right now for Collins, that was part of the critical needs from our 2016 Facilities Master Plan, has a budget of 7.3. So the 8.9 is total for the bond program since the beginning of the program, going back to 98. The 7.3 is the active project that we're doing now. So I wanted to kind of create a little connection between those two reports. And then we'll jump to the next one so we can look at some of the other information available in that report.
Don, you have a question?
Not a question, a comment, especially for our newer people here. That what she was just referring to was report number 2. In my opinion, that's the most important report that we ever see. We get a new fresh one every month, but we get so many comments from members of the community, especially here in Richmond, that have complaining that poor people of color in the flatlands have gotten nothing from our bond program. Even though when you throw report number 2 out there and show them they got about $800 million worth of schools. Yeah, it helps to explain what they think, because all they see is the Taj Mahal El Cerrillo High School. They see the most expensive school in the in the state at Pinole Valley High School. And they say, we got nothing. Well, you got a lot of elementary schools, you got middle schools, and almost $100 million worth of work at Kennedy High and Richmond High. But that, you can show that to the people, and it's awfully hard to refute it, although some of them do. They say that we're lying to them. Members of the City Council of Richmond have done that. But again, it's a critical report, so it's important to look at that every month. Pay attention to the changes in where the money is going. Thanks.
And I just wanted to make mention that about the notes column, because like, for instance, with Richmond, you have 2, 3, and 4, so that's important. to talk about.
Absolutely. If I could I address that when I
Sure.
present the whole report? Okay, thank you.
Ben?
If I could just ask really quickly in reference to what Don was just saying. So the report number 2, the critical report, falls under the expanded total? Is that what?
So
We're referring to?
let's walk through the columns.
Okay.
So the first column identifies the site name,
Mhm.
and this report is organized, it's elementaries first, then middle schools, then high schools, then their central site. There's an original budget from a moment in time. And then I would say the third column is really important because it identifies the board approved budget. And one of the things you'll notice there is there's a date. So that will identify the last board meeting when the board took action to increase or decrease a budget. So that's an important date. So there have been other board meetings since then, but that's the last time that there was a change. And we have that full record dating back to 2016 when we really moved this report forward. The next column says expended. And so these are dollars spent. So invoices paid, expended, no more dollars on hand. And so you'll notice here that it shows this goes back to fiscal year 99.
Mhm.
And it goes through the last completed fiscal year. So as a school district, we run July 1 through June 30. So the fiscal year that we closed ended on June 30 of 2023, and we have closed that fiscal year. And so that column identifies all of the historical expenditures in previous fiscal years. The next light green column is identifying the expenditures in the current fiscal year. And this is part of how the relationship between Munis and Colby is beneficial for us as a program, because one lens looks at fiscal years and we're trying to look across projects. And so that second column, it's telling you what's happened this fiscal year. So that's every dollar spent since July 1 of 23. The next blue column where it says expended total, that's all of the dollars spent previous fiscal years plus current fiscal year. So that's every dollar spent on that site to the date that's listed there, which since we're in January, that's through December 31st, last month. The next column says committed. And so your commitments are the things that you've committed to. So for example, your contracts, you have a contract with someone, you've committed to these services, or you've committed to a purchase, which we would say is like a purchase order. So those are your commitments. And so you can see we have commitments. We've contracted for services that are equal to almost $900,000 on Collins, but we haven't paid for those services yet, right? They haven't been rendered. They haven't been approved and paid, but they're committed. Those dollars are committed. Last column is the budget balance. So we have our board approved budget and our current budget, kind of cheating and looking at the line below. Our current project we're managing has a $7.3 million project budget. We have a little over $700,000 available. I like to think of it as the available dollars because those dollars haven't been spent and they haven't been committed. But those dollars are available specifically for this project. And as Ms. Humes was mentioning, that last column notes, we'll look at that a little bit more because we've added a couple. On the report itself, we have footnotes at the bottom that really are trying to describe a site status in the overall program, since we're representing such a long period of time, right? More than 2 decades. So it's kind of like that all the action happens on footnotes greater than 1. And we'll look at that when we get to the report. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay,
So one of the connections between our overall bond program spending and our little one-liner we have here at the bottom is you'll see, remember we talked about the available dollars, the remaining available dollars. You'll notice that you'll see that in the other report where it says remaining against budget, because we're tracking that particular project within that overall. So now let's take a look at that specific report. This report comes from Colby. So this report, we call it our consolidated budget report. And it's reporting on kind of the 3 big concepts, right? That budget. And one of the things you'll notice in looking at this report is this report will provide you with the project budget for that project. So if a site has multiple projects, it will break them out into separate line items. If the project's active, it'll have an asterisk. And so you can see here kind of following Collins, our 7.3, they give us the budget. Then our commitments, which are our contracts and purchase orders, and it tells us the total amount that we've committed, what % of the budget we've committed, and then how many dollars are available in the budget that haven't been committed or spent. The last group is our expenditures. I like to think of those as our paid invoices, right? Approved and paid. And so we have the dollars that have been spent, and then we have what % of the budget is spent. So one of the things I wanted to do on this slide, when we talked about the projects and some of the different statuses, we talked about what's the difference between a project that is closed and a project that's in closeout, right? Because we have a couple in closeout that we need to take back to the board. So we know that Cameron and Collins are in construction, so those are still pretty active, right? Those projects are happening. This report gives us some forecasting and it helps us see how many dollars we have left. Then we have the Chavez project, which is here in the middle, and this project is closed. So a project that's closed, you're gonna see that there'll be nothing remaining against the budget and everything's gonna be 100%. This project has completed financial reconciliation and closeout. The project's completely closed and completed. But the bottom project, Fairmont, so this is a project that is in closeout. So one of the things that you'll notice is the board approved a $3 million budget. So there is no further activities or services or purchases that'll be made. And you can see here that there's a little less than $300,000 available in that budget that's not going to be spent. And so we will go to the board with an action item asking them to take those remaining available dollars in the project budget now that the project's 100% complete. And historically, our recommendation has always been to take the project savings and return them to the fund balance so that they can be used on a project that might need those funds. Okay, and so that kind of gives you an idea, hopefully a little snapshot of what would be like a closed and completed project versus a project that would be in closeout. If we've listed it in closeout, it means that we're not expecting any other expenditures against that project, but those dollars belong to that project budget until the board approves otherwise. Everything requires board approval, which I love. I think it's great. It's a really good way. It's been a great accountability measure that we put in place. And it just kind of helps everything make sense.
yeah, when I would look at the financial reports, we have 52 schools, and all those 52 schools are going to be on report number 2. But I look here because you can very easily go through, and if something is 100%, I don't even look at it. But if it's not 100%, I want to know where it is. And that's when you go to, that's the one that I pay attention to.
Another clue is that asterisk. So you'll notice on Chavez, there's no asterisks next to critical needs because it's completely closed. That's not an active project.
Good.
So the next report we're gonna look at that you also have tonight, so we talked about our expenditures, our paid invoices. So services were performed, something was purchased, and we have approved and made payment. So there is the accounts payable, we call it an AP checklist. And so this is another report that we'll be providing and you'll be receiving it by site. So on the Cameron and Collins project, you can see here, if we go down to Collins, there are 3 invoices that were paid in the month of December for that project. So these expenditures, these paid invoices are reflected on that report because these were paid in December and your report's through December 31st. And so there's 3 invoices here. And what's incredible about this report is one of the key responsibilities by statute for the CBOC is to review the expenditures of the bond program. If a dollar is spent, it's going to be reflected here and you're going to see it. So you can see here by looking, and I'll teach you a trick for it in a second, that there's 3 invoices that have been paid on Collins. So it identifies the vendor, the check number, the check date, a short account that we'll come back to, and the invoice number, invoice date, the amount, and a description. So there's a lot of information there. But one of the things that we want to share with you and is available in the bond program management plan is the short account is like a cheat sheet to who was paid and what they do on our project. And so the short account gives us 4 pieces of information. It gives us the fund, the resource, the object, and the site. And so here's a little cheat sheet to the short account. So our fund is 21 and that's the bond fund. So all of the bond dollars are kept in a specific fund, which is not commingled. So fund 21, bond fund. There are 4 different resources, which is your second number. It's 4 digits, and that will tell you which bond measure. So remember when we talked about the 2016 facilities master plan implementation versus the Measure R implementation plan? So Measure D and Measure E, those dollars are held in resources 97, 45, and 48. The Measure R resources are held in 97, 47. And then we have had an extremely aggressive campaign over the years to take our local bond tax dollars and leverage them at the state for additional funding to the tune of more than $200 million. I should know the number right offhand, but in the last 10 years, it's definitely, I want to say it's about 40 million. I can bring that exact number to the next meeting. So those dollars that come back, they just make our local dollars go further, and we put those state dollars that we receive into 9790. So those dollars don't belong to a measure, but we have to track and account for them separately, but we use those dollars that we've received from the state to make all of our local dollars go further. The next 4-digit number is the object. Tons of resources available for this. I would recommend taking a look at our bond program management plan, but essentially it gives you an idea of what is the type of expenditure. So 1,000s to 3,000s are salaries and benefits, 4,000s are things. So if we buy equipment, if we purchase something, it'll be in the 4,000s. Services, 5,000s in capital outlay, like your architect or your contractor will be in the 6,000s. Last number is the sites. So our elementaries are 100s, our middle schools are 200s, our high schools are 300s. And then our central locations have a 600 number associated with them. And so that completes kind of my overview. And now I wanted to jump into the overall reports, and hopefully that is helpful. So I'm going to stop sharing and maybe we could go back to the packet. And we'll take a look at our reports. It'll take just 1 second so we can have everything shared.
Report.
Okay, I think we are over our limit that I have on the agenda, that, which doesn't really mean anything, but it's to keep us on time. So at this point, I have to see if there are no objections, if we can extend the time for this item. Pardon?
By how long?
By how long? How much?
I need about 5 minutes.
Okay.
I
but
would
we-
prefer to have 5 minutes.
But we also have to talk about the other items under the report.
Just for the
status of
financial
senior.
reports.
Yeah, so you need 5 minutes for that.
And then what about the status of the senior citizen organization? I mean, for 10 minutes?
All right, let's, without objection, I'm sorry, Don?
I always thought that the CBOC was here to oversee the bond program and the financial reports is the focus of that. I hate to see us put a time limit on there to essentially shortchange that. Because almost everything else on the agenda is more administrative. I prefer that we give staff the proper amount of time to get to complete their reports. This is information that at least I showed up to hear.
So
Okay,
you proposing a different time?
Yeah. so you're,
Give them the time that they need to give their reports.
This is a motion. We need a motion to extend time. We
Yeah.
adopted a specific time. We're extending that time.
Yeah.
We need it. If you could give us an actual number, we can act, the chair can ask for no objections.
yeah, in other words, I,
Make it easy.
on the agenda itself, I just gave it 60 minutes. We need
Correct.
more.
And we adopted.
So, Don is making a motion now. If there are no objections to Don's motion,
But there's no, we need a time.
Why do you need a time?
Because we adopted an amount of time when we adopted the agenda. We are going to extend that time. We're asking you, how long would you like to extend that time? If you're saying you want to make sure they have all the time in the world, say 60 minutes. Great, we won't take it all, but we're putting in a time.
We're taking staff time just to discuss this. So I'm not even gonna have the motion. I just give my thoughts on that. I just wanna hear the damn reports.
Okay, so
All right,
we also still need to follow proper parliamentary
Yes.
procedure. So, Madam Chair, if you could just pick a number and we'll
all right?
do that.
And at the end of it, you can extend it again.
Absolutely.
5 minutes, extend again. No
We're
limit.
just, these are parliamentarians, we're under Robert's rules, and evidently there are certain. Okay, so, if there are no objections, I propose we extend the time for half hour. No objections, fine.
Thank you. So, the first financial report that we'll be taking a look at tonight, this is our consolidated budget status report. This report is for our entire program. And one of the clues that lets you know is when you look here at the very first project where it says Bayview Elementary School, it says Legacy Project. So we talked about how we know a project is completed. We can see that the budget committed is 100%. We can see that there are no remaining dollars on this project, and we also see that there's no asterisk. So this is a completed project, but it's part of our program. And so we're representing all of our projects across the program. And so you see Bayview. The next project is a good example, and that is Cameron. So you'll notice there's 2 line items for Cameron. So on our 1-pager report, Cameron's just going to be a single line item. But on this report, it identifies for you what is the historical legacy project amount. And then we still have the active critical needs project, which has the asterisks and gives us the current status of that project. Another good example is Collins, because that's the example we walked through many times. If you'll recall, we looked at the overall budget for Collins was 8.9 million, but we said our current project is 7.3. What is the difference between the two? This report will help identify that for you. So one of the things that we've done in time is we are, I think, improving our reporting, but you kind of keep improving it from where you are, right? And so a lot of this information, it spans more than 2 decades, and so it's older information. But we did, if you could scroll down just a little bit, so you'll notice we have our elementary schools first. We're gonna actually walk down to, one of our high school projects, so you can take a look at how, we've improved this reporting, and this is another good example. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at Pinole. So you may recall that Pinole was not part of our 2016 facilities master plan, wasn't part of Measure R, but it's still active and it's on that project sheet that we're looking at. So essentially, any project that had already been authorized by the board prior to 2016 is what we call a legacy project. And the only legacy project that's still active is Pinole. But you can see when we were doing the work for Pinole, we had a lot more current financial information. So under Pinole, you can see a number of different projects broken out. And when you look at the report, you get a pretty good idea that it's the fields and site work project budget approved by the board that's still active and the others are closed.
Could you tell us, it's on page 4 of 5 of the report, correct? So that everybody will
Oh,
get there, because you have to go through elementary school.
I'm so sorry, thank
That's
you.
okay.
On
Yeah.
page 5.
Yes. So that's just an example that I wanted to share. And so now if you could turn to the beginning of the next report, that'll be page 1 of 2. Okay, perfect. So this report looks very much the same, but this is just our 2016 facilities master plan snapshot. And so in the presentation, we looked at 2016 and then we looked at Measure R 2020. So same information, but this is just your 2016 master plan projects. And this is really another report that came out of discussions here at the CBOC. So I really want to encourage and appreciate the questions and the discussions and the dialogues. One of the things that we heard historically is, you know, it's great that you have all this information for more than 2 decades, but I want to look at a report that's talking about the projects you're doing right now. And so we just did a subset report. And so this report is just the 2016 facilities master plan projects, same information, but it's just reflecting those projects. And so now we'll scroll down and you'll see something that looks very similar one more time, one more page.
Oh, this is circulars.
Yeah, if you could go down, just, we'll jump to the next report. So this is our 2016 MP. And this right here is our Measure R. And so you can see here, right, we talked about our 2016 facilities master plan, then we talked about Measure R. And in Measure R, we have 2 sites and we have 3 projects, and you see those reflected here. So you can see for Kennedy, there's the fields and bleachers project, which we have in a closeout status. And then we have the 2 modernization projects, and you can see those board approved budgets here. So you've got a report that gives you just the 2016 facilities master plan and a different subset that gives you Measure R, depending on which lens you'd like to use. Okay, next page, please.
I'm still basking in the glory. This is the first time we've seen this in the report.
Yes.
We're moving forward with this project.
So here it is, report 2, as it is affectionately known in the top right-hand corner. This is our bond program spending to date by site. So the last report that we looked at, I like to think of that as a project budget report, right? One site can have multiple projects. This is a site report. And so one of the things that Ms. Humes had mentioned was the notes, and we've added some new footnotes to the projects. And so I'll ask that you go to the second page of the report. And so down at the bottom, there are a lot of footnotes. We really want to make sure that we're providing all of the information. And so historically, we really just had 3 footnotes. Footnote 1, projects completed. Footnote 2, legacy projects are under planning, construction, or in closeout. That would be, for example, Pinole Valley. And then you have number 3, which is site legacy projects are completed. but the 2016 facilities master plan and the Measure R master plan are under planning, construction, or in closeout. So remember in the presentation, I had two charts kind of together on one slide. I thought that might be helpful. You could see the Measure R and the 2016 together in one place. So those are our footnotes 3. But one of the things that we wanted to add to this report to provide some additional information is in footnote 4. When we started the Kennedy and Richmond modernization planning, there was a planning budget of just $1 million that was authorized. So when you're looking through some of the historical reports, we really wanted to capture that because those project budgets started at $1 million. So then if you look at the actions, footnote 5, that was taken on November 8th, it was approving an increase of 279.1 million. You know, sometimes when you look at a number, it's like, where did she get 280 from? She's been saying 280 all night, but I can't find that in the packet. How did we get there? So one of the things that we've really tried to do is use the footnotes to tell that historical story so that when you're looking at the board artifacts, you can put together all of the pieces. And we're here, of course, to help you navigate and follow that. And so lastly, we have footnote 6, which identifies that $40.1 million budget that was added to the Siege Critical Needs Project is from state funds. So it's not Measure R funds. It was part of a Measure R plan because Siege was prioritized in the Measure R implementation. But there weren't Measure R funds available. And so the board authorized using those state dollars that we received to increase that Siege budget. Lastly, you'll note that on most of our financial reports, we do have a summary of the original bond measure 1998E, which was for Dijon. And so we just have a little snapshot of the data that's available to us now from then, so that you, again, have the program on a page. And so that is the report 2 presentation, and the AP checklist was not available at the time of posting, but we do have that available for you here tonight, and you should be able to expect that in all future packets.
Because you mentioned Dijon, I thought that was built prior to the bond program actually being established. Am I incorrect on that?
So it was the 1998 E funds that, so about almost $24 million of those funds went to Dijon.
Okay, so I thought most of that was state money.
I'm so glad you pointed that out. Much appreciated. So we do have a breakdown here for Dijon Middle School. About 24 was 1998 E, and then from a state funding standpoint, we have the 12.8. Absolutely spot on. Yes.
Kind of like the original Hercules Middle School, high school.
Mhm, mhm.
That's why we ended up with so many portable style buildings, because the state mandated
Mhm,
the money be used for the Walmart version of the school.
It was part of the Leroy Green
mhm.
funding source.
Okay, thank you. The last item under the district reports is the status of the senior citizen organization representative and other vacancies. At our last meeting, Louis was going to, we suggested that Don is interested in being a senior citizen rep. And Louis was going to put that to the board, but our meeting was like 2 days before the board. It didn't get on that agenda. So do we have that coming up on, I know it's not on Wednesday's agenda.
We haven't put it on the board agenda yet. I think we wanted to just bring back, and Melissa's gonna kind of give us an overview of that description between those two mandated positions.
Okay, and I'll explain that later. And yeah. I have something on that for later.
Do you
Do you
want to hold
want
that
us-
up later?
Do you want us to save it till then to share?
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure. Okay, now we're on to CBOC business, item F. The first thing is to, ask for approval of the minutes. You have copies of minutes in the agenda. They were sent out ahead of time. If there are no objections to the, minutes, we'll count to three and say that it will be, approved, stand approved. Okay, the number 2 under F. Select member for the district CBOC membership selection committee. And I have 4 attachments to that, so if we could pull up the first attachment. This is just giving you background on it. What we've got to do is decide how we're going to handle that. It wasn't in our bylaws. It's something new that just developed when they revised the board policy on our thing. So I wanted to give you a slight history of what is happening here. I think it's page 43. Yeah, here we go. Remember, we had talked about page 43, I think. In your, it says education codes. Yep. Down the bottom, it has a little bit thing, so hard to read, but it was page numbers. Yeah.
I don't know how page numbers on mine.
Oh, well, yeah, it's cut off a little bit here. It's following the financial reports. It should follow right behind.
It's after the last set of minutes.
After the minutes. Okay, everybody there? Okay, good. The education codes are the statutes that talk about all of the education codes for the whole Department of Education for the state. Proposition 39 changed the Constitution pertaining to taxation. And in that, we'll talk about the project lists, things like that, but it didn't mention anything about the CBOC. So the statutes had to put it into effect, in other words. They say we're gonna do this, then the statutes have to tell you how you're gonna do it. So these are laws that were passed. In this first one, this 15278, this is a code that talks about the workings of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. And I'd like you to look in that first section where it's in bold print. It says, the governing board of the school district or community college shall establish and appoint members of an independent citizens oversight committee. It doesn't tell them how to do it. It does say it has to be done within 60 days of once it's passed, and the board puts it in their minutes that it is passed. 60 days, they've got to have this committee, but it doesn't tell them how to do it. So the board policy talks about how they're going to accomplish this. And that's on page 53 in your grouping, and that should be right after the codes. I've got about 5 codes here that pertain to the CBOC. And this one you'll see it states board policy up in the left-hand corner. Well, the board policy, this is a policy the board makes on how they think the CBOC should work. They want to make sure it's within the legislative, within the statutes, et cetera. But this is not our bylaws. Our bylaws, we make up, and we're going to revise those. But in this bylaw, and it was made up by 2 members of the CBOC and 2 members of staff. They proposed it, they sent it to the board. The board passed it pending approval of their bylaws committee. And they, this is the project, the product of it. If you go down to section 5 of it, their policy. And the title is Bond Oversight Committee Membership. There, how many sections? There's 4 sections to this. Section 1 and 2, they talk about the number of people on it, the membership, who can be on it, who can't be on it. Section 5.1 and 5.2. In section 5.3, they talk about the terms of the members. Let's look at section 5.4, solicitation and appointment of members. This starts off with 4.1 is where you're putting in an application. And you've all done that, so you know that section. Well, after the applications are received, in section 5.42, this is new. They established a selection committee. And as I said before, the selection committee includes 5 members, the CBOC chair and a designated appointee, 2 members from the Board of Education, and the superintendent or his liaison, CBOC liaison. And this is the superintendent's liaison, that would be Lewis. The board's liaison is trustee Reckler. There are 2 different liaisons we have. So on our committee, this is the first time formed. Don and I were the 2 members from the CBOC, Don being the
John.
John, the chairperson, and myself, the vice chairperson, so we went on there. The 2 board members were trustee Reckler and trustee Smith-Folds. And then we would have, Lewis there or Melissa, and sometimes Lewis and Melissa would be there to help us on it. So they interview, and you went through the interview process. They interview the person, then they will, make a motion to the board or recommendation to the board. And then at the board meeting, the board will see how they're going to vote, if they're going to put the person on or not. So, see, the next thing I have is the presses. Melissa gave me we have a joint meeting, the bylaws say twice a year with the Board of Education and the CBOC. And in the meeting, with the, board, and that is, that should be your next, and your next section in the, agenda. And that one, I think I had that, too many papers. I'm sorry, take me a second.
This one?
Yeah, here we go. I think I have it. Yeah. At the, section they have, let's see. If you go down to the first, everyone there, where you see a special joint Board of Education CBOC meeting. It's the agenda for it. And it has item B.1. Approval. Okay, everybody there? All right, good. This is, and if you go down to about the 3rd paragraph, it talks about, since the adoption of the board policy, there were various 3rd-party independent audits, et cetera, et cetera. And they said that there should be a clarification of it. So the staff presented a draft policy in the next one, with written modifications. And on October, the final paragraph, on October 5th, staff presented it, the proposed one, in response to discussion of the method. Now, this is the agenda. The next section are the minutes. And in the minutes, you see that it goes, I highlighted it in yellow, but you might see it just highlighted. Everybody on the minutes one? Action items B. Number one, approval of proposed revision of board policy. And if you go down to the motion, Clerk Smith Folds moved to approve the policy and refer it to the bylaws committee for further review. Trustee Reckler seconded it. Board members and CBOC members made comments, and then it passed unanimously. So at that point, the proposal was passed, the board policy was passed pending a review by their bylaws committee. And Trustee Reckler came to a couple meetings, we talked about it. She checked with the staff, she checked with the CBOC for their input on the revisions from this document. So that's where it is right now. Trustee Reckler, could you tell us the status of this report? She's still on? Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You want an update on the submitted policy?
Yeah, where are we in the final approval of it?
Yes, so I can give you a very, very brief update. Over this vacation, I gathered all the feedback to the best of my abilities, and I put it into the policy, and I submitted it. And your question is my question. I do not know what happens next. I heard President Smith-Bold say that she wanted to have a joint meeting with the CBOC, and it will be my recommendation that my changes are reviewed by everybody in attendance. Thank you, I'm complete.
Okay, thank you. We're in uncharted territory here, so that's why we're sort of learning as we go. So right now, it's in limbo with, and we, as I said, we have a joint meeting twice a year. And our joint meeting should be coming up in February, March, whatever. And Trustee Reckler says that'll be brought up for discussion then for us. Okay, so now we've got the new committee. We met, so it's in existence. John Anderson was the chairperson at the time, and he was on the committee. He has gone because he was an alternate on the county, what is it?
Grand jury,
Pardon?
grand jury.
Grand jury, yeah, thank you. And that one of the jurors left, so now he had to leave the committee here and go there. So we have a vacancy. All right, now the ball's in our park. How are we gonna fill this vacancy? Are we gonna have the chairman, the chairperson just designate somebody? Are we going to have, rotate it? You know, it's we'll just rotate it through the members. Are we going to have the vice chairperson sit on it? And so that's what we're going to decide tonight, how we want to handle it. So if anybody has any thoughts, would you please, all right, Don?
Well, since the chair is automatically a member of the
Right.
selection committee, that's going to change after tonight.
All right,
Okay.
but the new chair would probably, I would assume.
Well, the new chair, by virtue of his office.
Yeah.
Would be on there, but I'm thinking that it might be premature to be making these decisions now, since the makeup will be completely different after tonight, based on that. I mean, no matter who, if we decided who to be in this second position, I said that might change after tonight.
Yeah.
And I think it's just premature to be discussing this and to making those kinds of decisions.
Well, maybe I didn't make myself clear. I'm not asking for a person, a name of a person. I'm asking how we're going to choose that person. It's more the process than the individual candidate. Is there any other discussion?
Sure, I would, I think, through, discussion and seeking people's interest, and then, you know, either we could take a vote on it, or the chair can decide. I frankly don't have a preference on that. But those are my thoughts. I would like to see it be, held by someone, you know, I'd like to, find, you know, an interested party to take that on. And if there's competition for that, then maybe, yeah, again, take a vote or.
So you're saying just like we elect the chairperson and the vice chairperson, the officers, we should elect them
Sure.
perhaps at the same time?
I don't know if we call it an election, but we take a vote on it.
Okay. Any other discussion? John, do you have any ideas?
That would really be for the next meeting.
Hmm?
That would really be for the next meeting. That's gonna fall under the new chairperson
And
on how this is done, because we have our process, and so this is, I would agree. I would agree with Dawn that this would be something
that would fall
for
in
the next meeting, yes.
Okay,
We will move on.
all right. Does anybody, everybody agree with that? We'll move on to the next meeting. Okay,
I
yes,
just want to confirm, so by the next meeting, the new officers that were elected before will be in place.
yes, yes. Okay, so do we need a motion for that? No? Okay. All right, good. That's fine. The next one is the, number 3, follow up on the Contra Costa Taxpayers Association letter to the WCC, board. In the packet, you have a copy. Says, district non-compliance with Proposition 39, page 62 of the agenda, school bond. Yeah, there's an orange thing across the top. This is a letter that I sent to Dr. Hurst. When I took office, I took I looked at what we have, what we need, et cetera. And I did an assessment of where we stand, and there were certain items that were not, in my opinion, complying with the ed codes and needed to be addressed. So I gave a report to the committee. They voted to send it on to the board, to the superintendent, to the Taxpayers Association, to the public, in other words, also. I sent it to the city councils, et cetera. I sent it to Dr. Hurst, and this is his reply to the letter. I asked in it for a meeting. I added my report. I added the Proposition 39. I added key performance inventory on the resolution or the budget. I added 2 resolutions. One resolution was when we canceled operations, and the second was when we started. They all pertain to the report that I had given. And then I went to, I'm the taxpayer representative, and I went to the Contra Costa Taxpayers Association, and I asked them if they would support us on this report. And the director, Jack Weir, came to our meeting in December and in your public comment period, he presented a letter from him, from the Taxpayer Association. And, so I sent that with, my report, et cetera, to Dr. Hurst, and I got this reply. Thanks so once again for your email. The board president will be addressing this during an upcoming meeting in early January with me and the clerk. I'm hopeful that at that meeting, the board president will provide direction on when we can meet. We will keep you informed. Thanks again. So right now, it's in the process of the board president and superintendent, and then he will let us know, and he will let Jack Lear from the taxpayers know when we can meet. So that's on the plan. The next thing on the agenda is the number 4, follow up on the motion to request clarification on board interpretation. That's page 48 in the agenda. And this is a letter. At our last meeting, Brandon made the motion to ask the board for clarification on the duties or on the definition of what is a senior citizen representative. And could you go to the local senior citizens meetings, board, you know, and is that considered it? What kind of organization you have to belong to? So Brandon had made a request of us to ask the board for definitions on all 5 positions that are legally required for it. And Louis, you're gonna.
Yes. This is gonna go ahead and give us an update.
Yeah.
So after the last meeting, we did follow up to seek guidance from council. And I'll ask if you could turn to page 46 of the packet, which outlines, it basically provides Ed Code 15282, which is the statute that identifies the mandated positions. And so one of the things that's nice, I actually have a sign in my office that says, keep calm and carry on pursuant to statute. So part of the guidance was to really look at the statute itself as it's setting forth the requirements for the positions. And when looking at the statute, the assumption is that all of these words are intentional. So the legislature used these words to specifically describe the requirements and their intent. And so specifically when we look, and this is again, Ed Code 15282A, and the first position being number 1. So it says a member shall be active. And so active meaning they have a current membership in a business organization. And when we look at the word organization, for example, in the dictionary, it says in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, organization is, the definition is intended to mean an association or society. So we would understand a business organization would be something like the Chamber of Commerce or other local business group. And then another key point and kind of intention or requirement that's identified in this statute, it says representing the business community located within the school district or community college district. So there are 3 very intentional things, which we would say are kind of like requirements for this mandated position as identified by the legislature. And so that is that they are active in a business organization that represents the local school, the community of the local school district. And so we would really look to those 3 things as being guidance when we would look at a candidate for the CVOC. I think the other position that we spoke about, so conveniently is number 2 in the statute. Similar language. So again, it says active, meaning that they are currently a member. And then it identifies in a senior citizen organization. And so one of the things that's interesting about this one, if you look at it, is it doesn't say one member shall be a senior citizen. It says one member shall be active in a senior citizen organization. And so when we look at the language that the legislature approved, we have to look at what we believe that they intended. And so keywords here being active, meaning that they're a member. And again, that it's in a senior citizens organization. One of the things that we do note about this one, while number 1 had located within the school district, 2 does not include that intentional language about it being within the district. And so, for example, when we look at number 2, we would think of something like AARP, right? A well-known senior citizen organization.
Now AARP is a national organization. Would you have to be a member of it and active in it?
So when we look at the language, we see active, which would mean an active membership. And then we see senior citizen organization. That I think that is a well-known and established senior citizen organization. And so the fact that it's a national organization doesn't appear to be a concern and doesn't seem to be in conflict with the intent of the statute.
What I'm saying, active, do you mean I paid my dues? That's
That
all
you're
you
an
would have to be
active
required.
member.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know with the taxpayers representative,
Mhm,
I always submitted a letter from the organization,
mhm.
saying that I was a member, et cetera. So would they have to get something like that, or you haven't decided
Membership
definitely?
Yeah, I think it would depend on the organization, right? And so like with ARP, there's a membership card that would show that they were active.
Right.
With a different organization, it may be a letter on behalf of that organization saying that you're an active member. So, really, it's just trying to do the due diligence of looking at what did the legislature intend, and therefore what did they write into the statute, and how do we implement that? One of the things that I thought was interesting was when you look at number 1, it says members shall be active in a business organization representing the business community located within the school district. And so never spent so much time reading a sentence before. But it's fantastic to go back and kind of look at, what do those words kind of intentionally say, and what we think the intent is, because really, our recommendation is just to go back to the statute.
Okay. So,
Oh, we had.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead. I'm a word person too. So I kind of did a quick review of them, and I did notice that number 2 does not have the restrictions that the other ones are requiring. So though it states, like for the parent or guardian, business organization, it has very specified things of needing to be a part of those things, but number 2 does not. So I guess my question kind of would be, if we go according to the verbiage, they're not necessarily required to show us that they're a part of these senior organizations, because it doesn't necessarily say that, or would we be requiring anyone that is interested in that position to show us that they are a part of the senior organization?
So when someone submits an application to be part of, and I'll emphasize this in extreme appreciation, a volunteer organization in service of the community, which we very much appreciate. The questions of the application are to align with the statute and kind of say, like, kind of from that initial candidate, like, do you qualify for these? But then I think part of the ask of staff, right, is to do our due diligence. For example, the statute does say that you can't be an employee of the district and serve on the CBOC. And so that would really be a due diligence step that staff would take in working with HR to make that confirmation. So that when a candidate moves forward to the committee's saying, you know, do they qualify for, you know, what are the positions that are available? And what positions do they qualify for? And so we really see that kind of our role as staff is just providing some of that due diligence to the committee.
And I think this is one area where maybe the bylaws would be an area where the committee themselves could actually define what those criteria are, as long as they meet within the statute, the requirements that are set forth, then the bylaws could define what it would actually mean to have proof, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Don?
A couple of items. First address,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Don. We are time up, I had 10 minutes. Without objections, I'd like to extend this discussion 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, fine. I'm sorry, Don.
just to address what you just mentioned about bylaws. Well, this is a board policy issue. And the bylaws we can't tell the board what to do on their board policy. This, I believe, is something that the board needs to decide what criteria is necessary for both of these positions. But then on these things, we've got ourselves, I mean, this is extremely vague on both of these. You know, what constitutes a senior citizens organization? I mean, is it a national organization, or is it an organization that's representing the seniors of West County? I mean, with ARP, you pay your $15 a year, you're a member. But does it really represent the people of West County? No, it does not at all. But we don't have any organizations that represent seniors in West County. It's a problem for us because you've got language here, but it doesn't really address this community. I mean, I represented the senior citizens on the CBOC before because I was a member of ARP. It just didn't make any sense. But the business organization is the one that really concerns me. Because you mentioned the chambers of commerce or chamber of commerce. We don't have a chamber of commerce for West County. We have 4 chambers of commerce. And they are extremely exclusionary. Okay, you have to pay a fee. Okay, you've got about, I think, 185 businesses that belong to the Richmond Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, Richmond is 3 times bigger than the other communities. But the 185 businesses, you say, well, that's quite a few. Well, it only represents about 12 to 15% of the businesses in Richmond. And it excludes almost every small business. I mean, I own 2 businesses. It's the fee to join the Chamber of Commerce for Richmond is $550 a year. Where's my profit? What good would the Richmond Chamber of Commerce do me? I sell my work outside of Richmond. I sell it all over the world. Richmond Chamber of Commerce couldn't help me on that. It just doesn't do any good at all. But you also have the Council of Industries, and you have the Contra Costa Building Trades Council as well. I was told by the committee, the selection committee, that my affiliation with the Contra Costa Building Trades Council doesn't constitute.
Okay, I think we've got some good discussion here and good ideas. On page 63 is my letter that I sent to Dr. Hurst on this matter. And his reply was, I'm including Board President Smith Folds to get direction on this matter. So perhaps, Louis, your group and President Smith Folds could discuss it and we could get some guidance from you. Okay, thank you very much. The last section are the reference documents. I just want to go over these. What? Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Appointment members to the ad hoc annual report.
So this is 2020, if I can clarify, this is 2021, 2022, is that correct?
Yes,
Or, okay.
yes. And,
I'd also like to clarify, this is an annual report committee. So this would not be an ad hoc committee, it'd be a special committee. But it would act like a standing committee because it has continuous subject matter jurisdiction. So they're still gonna have to follow Brennan.
so we have to have meetings and things like that.
Well, you have to have agendas for meetings and stuff like that, yeah.
Well, all right, in the past, we haven't done that.
Well.
Yeah, okay.
In the
All right.
future, we'll fix that.
So every year, it's by law, we have to produce an annual report. We can produce more than that. We have to do at least one. And in that report, you have the projects. There are several chapters, projects that you've done, the financials. You have the audits that were taking place. And we usually have every one of the members take part and help writing it, but you need a committee to guide the process and to put the report together. And this year, our resources are a little, are slim because Brandon is being president. That doesn't give, there's a tremendous learning curve to do that, to be chairperson. And so he's going to be busy doing that. He's also helping write the chapter on the FMP. Ariel is new secretary. And she will be help writing the chapter on the finance. Ja is new. She's going to be help writing the chapter on the audits. And so originally, the committee that was set up was John Anderson to be the chairperson. Brandon to be on the committee, and Ja to be on the committee. Well, Brandon is not available right now. And John isn't here, so that leaves Ja. So I volunteered to be chairperson of the committee, and I asked Ja if she'd be willing to be on the committee. And Lynn, I had asked you, would you be willing to join us on that?
Absolutely.
All right, I like your joining us.
So,
You've probably written a lot of reports. So, but according to our bylaws, the committee, the chairperson can appoint members to the committee, but it's got to be approved by the body. So if there are no objections, I would, to this, I would say the 1, 2, 3, it is.
we need to have the actual.
You have to
So
have a
for the
vote on
minute,
that?
we don't have to have a motion, but you need to be. When we ask for no objections, we gotta be very clear. You're asking for no objections
To do
for
what?
yourself as chair,
Oh, okay,
and Lynn and Ja as members of the annual report committee.
okay, thank you. So there are no objections? So the motion passes or the request passes. Okay, great. Now let's go to the reference document. First reference document is on page 64. It's the future agenda item log. And that is a log for our committee specifically. It has several lines on it. The first column is the item number. Every year, we have resolutions, we set up committees, et cetera. So in this case, 23 stands for 2023. This is the first resolution for that. Okay, for the bylaws log, because we have that other resolution. And Don wanted us to add to the agenda, the update of the bylaws. An excellent suggestion. He has since withdrawn his suggestion. He may add it at a later date. So right now that does not exist, but anybody who wants to put something on the agenda, whether it's a member, whether it's a member of the public, we're gonna have, I hope to have a process just like they do for the board. You fill it out, send it in, and there is a executive committee made up of the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and the secretary that makes up the agenda, decides what's going to be on it. And they decide, do we have time to talk about it, et cetera. So that the process would go to the executive committee, And then they would make the decision, but we want to keep track of what people are asking for, so it doesn't get lost in the weeds. So that's the point of this agenda. Right now, there's nothing on it. The second, one is it's actually the request log. If you want to ask for something from the committee, from the staff, you send an email to Sylvia Garfield, who is the senior assistant to Lewis. And again, we don't want things get lost. So she takes care of this log. And you'll see that the first one is the person who requested, the date, the subject, the forward, who they forwarded to it, so you know where it is in the system, and then the response from that place. So if you have any requests, send them to Sylvia and she'll take care of it. If you send it to Lewis, make sure you CC Sylvia. And it's good to CC Melissa too, because that way we know it won't get
It'll get
lost. Right. Okay, the next one. Sylvia also keeps up the roster, the official roster for the organization. And that's the next one. And she gives it to us every month. So that's where this one comes from. And the final page is the attendance. We have attendance roster. We've been keeping it for the calendar year. And you'll see P means present, the member was at the meeting. A means they weren't at the meeting, but A plus is that they gave notification, A minus is they didn't give notification. So this is something that the secretary, I think in our bylaws, the secretary keeps it. But this will be in every meeting also. So that's the end of the agenda. We will have our next meeting will be February 12th. And if there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:12. Okay. No objections. All right. Thank you. And before we leave, I would just like to tell you, I've enjoyed being the chairperson much. I've learned a lot. There's a tremendous amount to it. And I wish Brandon good luck. Thank you.